Andrew Tate.
Bitch, I'm Andrew Tate. Pull up in a Bugatti. I might take away your girl, cause she keep looking at me. Oh, you say I'm not a goat?
Stop the cap.
Please, get up on your knees and top the top G. Hey, you know I'm a dog, motherfucker, bark.
Ex-pimp.
Pimp, mafia-associated criminal. Surely it can't all be true. Well, it's all true.
Turned Muslim, turned conservative Christian influencer. To most left-leaning Americans and even some on the right, it isn't immediately obvious why Andrew Tate has garnered such a following. And I think everyone would agree that Andrew Tate does have a massive following among young conservative men. And I didn't make this video to bash Andrew Tate, but I didn't make this video to defend him either. If you're like me, then you're interested in the question of why Andrew Tate has risen to stardom. And the first thing I'd like to point out is that figures like Andrew Tate gain quite a bit of traction because they sell you this escape the matrix pitch.
They've left holes in the matrix for the people who are truly pissed off living inside of slavery to jump out of.
And in a way, it's very real. Like, I think most of America would agree that mainstream media has lied to them for the past few years. And that's a big part of why podcasts decided the 2024 election. Presidential candidates turned to podcasters because it was widely understood that Americans on both sides of the political spectrum ceased to trust legacy media.
Organization, not can you are fake news.
The American people don't trust the mainstream media to give them the truth anymore. So when people like Andrew Tate tell you that reality as it's presented to you is false and that they'll help you see behind the smoky mirrors, that's very tempting because it's at least partially true. Most people know they're being lied to, and they gravitate towards people who they think will tell them the truth. Andrew Tate presents himself as a truth teller. Another reason I think Andrew Tate has garnered such a following is because he's a reaction to a political slogan pushed into America's consciousness.
Toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity. And real quick, for all you nerds out there, I covered Jungian psychology on this channel before. And for the rest of you, this applies to our conversation.
Because in psychology, if something is pushed to the forefront of people's minds, in this case, toxic masculinity, a lot of times what comes next is a shadow of that thing.
So this whole Beyonce, Swiftie era of girls run the world has been fun, but it has had some consequences. Like, here's a story that illustrates my point. I'm currently attending a university, which is 70% female. And at least once a week in my everyday life, I hear young women talk about how stupid, toxic, and evil men are, how the patriarchal society oppresses them, and how being a straight male basically disqualifies you from participating in society, especially if you're white. There's just this man hatred out there, and you could almost feel it in the air. Men have no place in the discussion for how to bring society forward because men are the problem in society. And I may be speaking slightly hyperbolically. And to those on the left listening, believe me, I understand the conversation around gender inequality and the patriarchy is much more nuanced than I'm talking about here. But if you are on the left, I would encourage you to listen to people on the other side of the political spectrum, even if it's just to understand what they're saying, and even if you disagree with them. And what they're honestly saying is they're tired of that shit. Being a male and being told how evil, stupid, perverted, and oppressive you are is a real buzzkill, even if it's partially true. Maybe those on the left are only using gender inequality and toxic masculinity as a starting point for a broader conversation, but a good part of the time, you've already lost your audience before you get to talking about solutions because you start the conversation by insulting them. So toxic masculinity has cast a shadow, and part of that shadow is Andrew Tate. And although I take issue with the term, I think it's safe to say that someone on the left would consider Andrew Tate an embodiment of the term toxic masculinity. One of his whole talking points is how he's a manly man's man.
It's a pussy, and everyone around you's allowed you to be a pussy because no one's called you a pussy. I should be a therapist.
His flashy cars, mansions, and girls.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
And some of the stuff he says is wild to conservatives and liberals alike, like how he says it's worse if a woman cheats than if a man cheats. He seems to have this underlying double standard between men and women and this tendency towards polygamy or something. that most conservative and liberals alike would find troubling. And to those of you who don't find it troubling,
I understand Andrew Tate's broader point about why it's worse if a woman cheats than a man cheats, and that's more than I have time to for this video.
so we're not going to talk about that right now. But the main point I'm trying to get across in this video is that when you tell an entire segment of the population how toxic they are, they tend to gravitate towards someone who tells them how great they can be. And they might even ignore that person's colorful past and questionable statements. Have you heard of Hustler University?
Subscribe or you're not a top G and probably a puss.